Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah Templeton and Phil Major. It's great to have you both here. Thank you for joining us. Not too long to go in the local body elections. So
a month today, I believe.
Yeah,
voting's open, so yeah, it's good.
So great to have you both here. As you know, Business Canterbury is a big part of the business community here in Christchurch and across the Canterbury region. We represent thousands of members across all sizes of businesses, all sectors and all stages of business, and we know right at the moment things have been pretty challenging for businesses. Christchurch and Canterbury is doing really well, but we also know the role that local government plays in supporting businesses to be more productive, to be more innovative, and to actually grow is a really important part of local government. So the focus today on our chat is really to understand what you and your roles moving forward will do to help support and enable the business community. Christchurch and Canterbury and the wider South Island, of course, are also experiencing a period of significant growth, both in terms of a real appeal as a place to live, as a place to come and invest in, a place to work, to raise families. And so what we want to do is make sure that we continue that momentum as we look to the future. Christchurch and Canterbury is really well positioned, and we've got big ambitions, and so right now it's really important that we have the right leadership in place to continue to grow our contribution to the New Zealand economy. So really pleased to have you both here today to listen to what your views are on that. So let's get started. I thought what we'd do to start off with is just ask you both to share a little bit about yourselves. You're both in the public spotlight a lot, and more so obviously in the recent weeks and in the next month. So, in that, a lot of people know a lot about you. That tends to be the case when you put yourself in the public spotlight. But what's something, we'll start off with you, Phil, what's something that you would share about yourself that maybe the general public doesn't know about you, that would make you a good leader and something that people might relate to?
So, about 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm on Ritalin pills. The best thing, people that have known me for a long time will know, there's no surprise. Because when I was at school, when I was younger, I used to spend half my day looking out the window and things like that. And the headmaster had a rubber stamp, could do better, every year. But having got that sorted out, it makes you concentrate so much more. But what it does do, it lets you do about 5 things at once. Your head can race around and do all these sort of things. And I enjoy it because I can get a lot done at once. But it does make me concentrate more on what's happening. So a lot of people around the country have got that sort of problem and wonder why they were taught differently. So I'm happy to share that, and there we go.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think you're right, we do see a lot of people now talking about the importance of understanding neurodiversity and both the opportunities that provides, but also some of the very real challenges. So thank you for sharing that. What about yourself, Sarah? You've been involved in local government for quite some time now, and you've put yourself out there as a future mayoral candidate. So tell us something that maybe the general public doesn't know about you that would really set you apart as a great leader for the city of Christchurch.
I guess just that I'm really intensely curious about everything. Like, not necessarily a deep dive into any one topic, but I want to know everything about how everything works, so you can see how they all fit together. And that means that I'm able to see different people's perspectives as well, and try and talk across boundaries where there's gaps, which I think really helps, understand lots of different perspectives and where the systems might need tweaking to achieve the outcomes that we need. And I think that really helps.
Yeah, joining the dots and those connections is vitally important, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm not sort of ever straight down one road, because I'm really open to lots of different opinions and really curious about what people think, but actually why they think it, and how we can get better outcomes.
Yeah. Fantastic, thank you for both sharing that. So let's get into some conversations really, I guess, around a few different things. We're going to start off with vision and leadership for Canterbury. Picking up on the point of the fact that we are in a really good position right now. We've heard about the two-speed economy across New Zealand. We're in a really fortunate position. So we'll start with you, Sarah. What is your long-term vision for Christchurch and Canterbury as we head into sort of the 2030s? And how will you achieve this under your leadership?
Thanks so much. I think it's important to acknowledge first where we've come from. So it's been 15 years of a really challenging time for local businesses and for our communities. So, the first earthquake hit 15 years ago, but then we've had floods, fires, pandemic, the mosque shooting. All of those things have really challenged business. And now we're growing and we're looking to become a much more resilient city into the future. We've got the foundations and we've almost completed the rebuild, which is fantastic. But what we really need to make sure we do is get ahead of those future challenges and grasp the opportunities that we have coming our way. So what we need is someone who's really strategic at the head of the table to really look at those things and look long term, not just short term, to make sure that we're putting the case to government and to other businesses and other places for investment here in order to take Christchurch and Canterbury.
Great, thank you. Phil, what about you?
As Sue said, I'd say same thing, different way. We've been to hell and back in the last 15 years, and I want to make sure that we continue, hopefully, grab the ball and keep running with it, because we might have been bad for 15 years, but we are in the sun, I feel, for the next 10 or 15 years, and I don't want to lose that momentum. Some business people may say that the council may have held them up a bit over the years when we're getting running, but I would like to see the council being more enabling and not throwing hurdles up for little daft things and get it to happen. Because one of the other things, of course, is we've just had intensification sort of put on us, and I felt sorry for staff. For 5.5 years they've been working on that, and I think hopefully we got it across the line last week, and it's up to the minister now. But we've now got areas of town which are going to be heavier, intensified, and we've got to make sure we've got our infrastructure and that up to speed in those areas, because there's going to be a lot more pressure on those bits. Yeah. So welcome everyone in, but just people coming in, of course. The more people you've got, the more people are on the road. So it's all like this. Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I think we are in a great place. It has been really tough for businesses for a long period of time. And it is fair to say that businesses often do look to local government as a bit of a hindrance as opposed to an enabler. Sometimes that's a fair statement, sometimes it might be a bit harsh. You tend to get blamed for pretty much most things, even when it's not a local government issue. What do you see as the biggest challenges for Christchurch in particular in achieving some of those visions? Sarah, again, come back to you to respond.
Yeah, I think there's two key roles that council plays. There's the specifically enabling stuff that's around the paperwork and the bureaucracy, if you like, and that stuff does need to be super efficient because that's what we need in that space. And some of that's blocked up by the rules we have to follow from central government, but I know that there's ways that we can become more efficient internally. But there's the other enabling role that we play in that we're a really large player in the economy itself. So we employ thousands of people. We do a lot of, we tend to run a whole pile of construction jobs. That's all jobs in the local economy. And we know that after COVID, for example, you came to council and said, please don't just slash your spending, because that spending is what helps our economy keep going, and that's what's enabled us to maintain momentum since then as well. So one of the challenges we have, of course, is with potential rates capping and the purpose of local government shifting. And we have to be really careful and strategic about how we do that. We've seen what's happened in Wellington when there's been a whole pile of slashing of staffing and projects. What we don't want is that to happen here, because it has a really big knock-on impact onto the economy, and that would, set us to losing momentum.
Okay. Phil, what do you think are the biggest challenges to your vision?
What I'd like to see is a lot of smaller businesses have a crack at being able to do some of the council work. It's all very well having big ones, and they write stories for health and safety and all those sort of things, like a War and Peace novel. And then they end up going out and hiring the small guys. The small guys all have to start somewhere, and I'm pretty sure we're looking at being able to make it easier for the smaller guys to do it, because there's a lot of work coming in. And if we can spread it around and let everyone have a go at it, it's going to be better for everyone. And as I say, don't lose momentum. We have a lot of staff, but just get it out there and see how we can get things still cranking along.
Yeah. Keen to just pick up on one point. So, we've talked a lot in the past about, government have invested in Christchurch a lot after the earthquakes. And so, there is a bit of a risk, and there is also obviously the challenges in the North Island versus how we're going in the South Island right now, that there may be a tendency for the government to pull back a little bit into Christchurch and the South Island because we are doing so well. How do you think we need to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that we really sell the opportunity to the government that they should continue to invest here? I'll start with you.
As you are probably aware, after the earthquake, the government gave us $17 billion, and it was very much appreciated. And I'm sure, sadly, if exactly the same thing happened now, the government wouldn't have $17 billion to put at us. But one of the things is to make sure that we've still got very good relationships with and build good relationships with people in central government, because they're the ones that dish out the money. We're lucky at the moment. We've got all of Hallsville Road, which is totally paid for by the government. We've got Bram Street, which is going to be totally paid for. Probably 40-50% of Pages Road Bridge is going to be done like that. And we've got a lot of money coming down. And it's the relationship you have with government. And as you will have heard, because it was in the news last week, I rang up Simeon Brown after the election and said, mate, we've had $17 billion down here, stadiums and all sorts of money we got given. Can you back off giving us some money for the immediate future? Because up in Hawke's Bay, they were flattened. And I really appreciate, and I'm sure all the people of Christchurch do, really appreciate the money and help we got. Since then, we've been, just with relationships that the council has had with central government, we've had 265 odd million given to us, so for different jobs. But you are right in what you say. The amount of people that are living in the South Island versus the amount of money that NZTA gives us is a paltry amount to what it should be, and that needs some work to get it up.
Yeah. So, Sarah, Phil has the luxury, I guess, of having spent time as the incumbent mayor and building those relationships. And relationships are important. But from your perspective, what else do you think we need to do? Because relationships will take you so far, but what else do you think we need to do to really convince the government to continue to invest in Christchurch?
Yeah.
And some might say that actually it was a brave call that Phil made to the government to say we didn't need their support. We also need to make sure that we invest ahead of demand so that we don't end up in the same situation as the likes of Queenstown or Auckland. So
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, we pitch in 14% of the National Land Transport Fund, but we get 5% back in Canterbury. And while the framing around the generosity for that major disaster, Auckland, Hawke's Bay, is really real, the money didn't get reallocated to Hawke's Bay. It got reallocated to things like tax cuts and other projects in the South Island. And so it's money that we've missed it out on. Bram Street, for example, had already been funded by the Labour government before it was cancelled and then re-put back in again. And so we need to be more strategic with our relationships. It needs to be Christchurch, the Greater Christchurch Partnership and Canterbury putting together proposals that are strategic for the region and sub-region to government rather than just one individual to another, because those ones change over time. So if we've got a really strategic business case for them that shows how it's the opportunity that we offer to them to help solve their problems rather than just coming in with our hand out. And if we're able to do that, then it's enduring. Governments change, mayors change, and if you've only got a one-on-one relationship, you put the whole thing at risk. So you need to be much more strategic.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So you've both painted an exciting vision for the future, which is great. So let's talk now about how you would, I guess, make that vision real by really reshaping the council to better support business growth. As I said before, the business community can often see the council as a bit passive rather than really championing and being proactive around business growth. So how would you lead? Sarah, we'll start with you. How would you lead a shift to be much more enabling, business friendly, and recognising when we have a strong business community and we have a strong economy, we actually have good, strong community outcomes? So how would you make that shift and really turn that around to being a real enabler?
Yeah, I think it takes a couple of things, and one of them is having much more frequent, deeper conversations with Business Canterbury, the CCBA and others about what it is that are the hold-ups, and actually being strategic about how we address those. Some will be able to, some we won't. Making sure that we're putting in the enabling infrastructure for business, making sure that we're supporting Christchurch NZ in the work that it does, and finding out from business whether there's other things that we need to be asking Christchurch NZ to do. They're some of the key things to start with, I think.
Okay, great. Phil?
As you know, I've been in business all my life. 1974 I left school, and then I became counsellor. So one job on my CV. I've got general business sense, and I always like to talk to people with relationships and talk to the businessmen around, or business people around, and see what their ideas are and listen to them. Because when it comes down to it, if business is doing well in Christchurch, the community does well in Christchurch, because business is okay, they employ people, and don't forget, people are coming down here from Auckland and Wellington. They're looking for something to do, and we've got to make sure we grab them with both arms and make sure that they've got good, reasonably high-paying jobs. And it's common sense in my view.
Okay, so in regards to that then, and Phil, I'll start with you. What was the single biggest regulatory change you would champion to make it easy to do business in Christchurch? You know, you'll both be on the receiving end of hearing, you know, lots of gripes from the business community. What's one single biggest regulatory change that you would put in place?
One thing I want to do, right, here, I'll just give you an example. There's a building around the corner in town that is going to be demolished, okay, no problem. It took probably 2 years to get the heritage order taken off it, which was a shame because the building is haggard. Even Heritage New Zealand wouldn't walk into it because it was so dangerous, but it seemed to take a long time. And paperwork, but this particular building, and this is the bit that really got sort of wound me, it gets designed, it comes in, bang, that's what they want to build, 150 room house, hotel, and then it gets handed down to an area of our council who decide, oh, well, we're not happy with that design, we'll change it. So then it goes backwards and forwards for 18 months, backwards and forwards to the person who's built it. And at the end, we say, oh, okay, you can just carry on with what you're doing. But by the way, here's a bill for 65 grand because we've been stuffing you around for 18 months. That sort of stuff is not going to make anyone that comes here happy. So that's something I really want to streamline out of it and make it as easy as possible.
Okay, great. That sounds impressive. Sarah, what about you?
I mean, most of the regulations that are in place are stuff that we don't write. And so I think that one of the things that council needs to do is play a really important advocacy role to central government to get change to the things that are getting in the way. And we can work with Business Canterbury on doing that, and with the other regional mayors, sub-regional, to try and get those changes through. We need to make sure that we're really efficient in our processes and getting things done in time. But the regulations themselves tend to be central government, and that's where we need to work together more.
Yeah. Do you think there's, I mean, we do hear sometimes that, you know, you even though there is obviously some regulations that you have to work within and you know, fully respect that you do have constraints that you have to operate in. What we do hear sometimes, however, is that the Local Government Act seems to be different between Christchurch and Selwyn, for example, or Selwyn and Waimak, and actually it's not. So what about interpretation inside of Christchurch City Council, for example? Are there some things that you think, you know, you can be doing differently to change some mindset within council to speed things up, to make it easier for businesses to actually work through processes? Yeah,
I don't know if you remember, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think we went through this phase where we really tried hard to do this can-do council, to be the really enabler thing. Fast fail, you know, try something new. If it fails, it's okay, it was cheap, whatever. And we tried that for a while, and I think after about 6 or 7 months, all of a sudden, it just seemed to grind to a halt because there were a few things that we tried, they didn't go well, and we got pilloried in the media. Mm-hmm. And so the organisation itself became incredibly risk averse again, understandably, because, you know, members of the community and some business owners were going, oh, council, and that pulled things back. I'd like to see us try it again, but start slow, start early, and work with our communities and work with business to say, this is what we want to do. How do we do it in a way that means if we do fail, it's okay and we can try again? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Having that environment where you can try things without being, hung out to dry if it doesn't.
Absolutely,
is
and
really
that's what happens
important.
to council a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in regards to that, I guess, we talked before about, working with the business community. How will you ensure consultation with the business community is meaningful, acted on, and genuine? Because I think, there has been in the past, in some situations, consultation with businesses is after a decision is made, and then we're going to consult with you and tell you what the decision is, versus actually saying, this is what we are thinking, what do you think? So, Phil, do you want to start with that one, and then I'll come to you?
We've got to be, we love consulting. Okay, we go out and we spend that fortune on consulting, and then the government will come along and speed limits, for example, and then we have to go out and consult again. And people get consulted up to the wazoo. But I understand what you're saying with the likes of, say, and I'm not against any of this, Litchfield trip. It was decided that it was going to be, all of a sudden the businesses around there going, oh, that's what we've decided. And it was. And they kick up a fuss and say, oh, you're ruining this, you're doing that. So we have to go out and appease them and stuff like that. We've got to start a little bit earlier and get them and be more open to get their ideas in. Because not that we have to bend down to bow down to every developer in town, but you've got to remember, after the earthquake, there's a big number of developers who could have taken all their money away in a wheelbarrow and sat on the beach in Fiji, and that's the end of that. But they had faith in Christchurch, and they came back to us. And take the likes of, say, Riverside Market, for example. The council, and I've heard all of us go around, we pat each other on the back, how wonderful it is and all that. I would imagine, and I know a little bit, I would imagine that council didn't make things easy on the way through, and that's what we've got to listen to make it, and that the staff are only doing with the laws that we've, or the bylaws or whatever we've given them, that's the bit, they only do what we ask them. Yeah. But I've also been up and down the lift with a number of people, and always yapping away to them, and they say, oh, do you know that if you did this, this might be different and we could save a few bob? They're at the coalface seeing how, oh, we could save a few dollars here. We've got to encourage them to have a voice, not say, oh, if I stick my head up, I'm going to get it whacked off. So always encourage.
Yeah. Sarah, from your perspective, like genuine consultation early?
Yeah, I think it's that pre-consultation, it's that engagement early. Yeah. And there's a range of things that I don't think we communicate particularly well. But also, businesses are under a lot of pressure, and unless something's immediate and about to happen, sometimes it's hard to pay attention early. So how we find ways to bring people together and have those early conversations. Yeah. So I think, because business has been through so a lot over the last 15 years, I think there's a fear that things that council does will make it harder again. And I think sometimes we don't communicate well, the growth, for example. So we're due to grow by an extra 32,000 people in the next 10 years. So we're growing the pie here. So when we try and do something new, it's not that we're going to slice the pie more finely, for example, for hospitality or whoever, because there's going to be more people here, so more capacity for more business. Yeah. But when I talked to people from the hospitality industry, they didn't realise that. They thought that a new area and a new, so pedestrianised area down by the stadium, Litchfield Street, would be detrimental to their business, without understanding that we'd have so many more people here to be able to use it. Yep. And so having those kind of understandings, and maybe a series of regular, not like the forums we've had, but like much more inclusive, and ones in places that suit business and those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you're right in terms of sharing that information. Often, there's a role for all of us to play in terms of talking about the really great stuff that's happening in Christchurch and Canterbury and the South Island as well, because we do tend to sometimes, certainly the media tends to focus on the things that we haven't done yet, and so I think we all have a role to play in really celebrating and sharing some of it.
And I don't think we've got a shared vision currently. So we had a shared vision, after the earthquakes. Share an idea was phenomenal, and internationally award-winning, and the new city stuff was done off the back of that. that's kind of done.
Yeah.
What we haven't done is a piece where we talk to everyone and say, actually, what's the next 15 years? And it shouldn't just come from any one of us. What it should be is our next shared vision for the next 15 years, and so we know what we're working towards.
I know you're dying to jump in here. Phil.
Oh, no, I'm not jumped in to argue or anything, nothing. I went to just a little do last night at Collier's, who were just saying, this is what's happened in the last 6 months, 8 months. And they started, I've been out of it for a while as far as the square metre rates that just for raw land and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, I'm out of touch. And the number of people that are coming down, businesses that are coming down from North Island, because the square metre rate for the land is half in some respects. And they can get down here and do this. They can go to the airport quickly. They can go to the port quickly. Excuse me. So, but they were very talking extremely buoyant, and it was we need to go to more of those because they're good for the heart.
And what we need to make sure is, of course, when those people do make those decisions to come here, that they get the very best experience from their engagement with local government. So look, we've talked a bit about council culture and regulation. Let's now talk it around foundations of growth, and particularly around our infrastructure. Because of course, as we are growing, we need to make sure that we continue to build ahead of demand to stay competitive. What we don't want is we don't want to all of a sudden destroy some of the very real things as to why people are actually coming here. Phil, we'll start with you. What would be your top 3 capital investment priorities as Mayor, and why? So your top 3.
Okay. Well, one thing is it's underway now, but to get the wastewater treatment plant finished. I'm a great believer out of bad comes good. The trickle filters tore off up in the sky about 4 years ago, and that was bad. Out of that comes good. We've got the opportunity now through working with the insurance company to not build back what we had, build back a thing called activated sludge, which is going to make light years difference for the people in Bromley with no odour, but it's also going to be a better system for the city. The other thing is, and I'd like to apologise to all the people in Creek Road and Maidstone Road with the sewer pipe that's going up there. That's been done for, it was a bit worn out, but it's mainly being upsized for what could possibly happen out towards the airport if noise contours changed and there's another gap of houses, because that's where our infrastructure is probably under a bit of pressure, and also around where we're going to intensify and stuff like that. So get ahead of the 8 ball as far, especially water main and sewer. Clean water in and dirty water out, they're the main things. Stormwater's a big issue as well, but we're sort of on top of that with all the money that we spent on the retention basins out at Sparks Road.
Okay.
A couple of $100 million out there, and it worked very well in the last last flight.
Great. Sarah, your top 3 capital investment priorities as you were successful as Mayor, what would they be and why?
The water network, and making sure that our water network is fixed, and it's not just about fixing the leaks that are currently there, but actually renewing our pipes ahead of them breaking. So we know we've got a big backlog of renewals that were put off after the earthquake, so we could do the repairs. So getting on top of that for both our drinking and wastewater is crucial. So that's number 1. Taking advantage of that amazing, poignant opportunity that we've got in the Otakaro Avon River corridor, and making sure that we've done the investment in that space, including the stop banks, but also the planting, because that space is going to give us an enormous opportunity, both for local communities, but actually for tourism and stuff as well. And I think that will be important. The other thing is our transport network, so making sure that we're putting in place bus lanes, cycleways, all of those kind of things. So with that growth I was talking about earlier, at our current rate, we would see potentially another 15 to 20,000 cars on our road in rush hour. We've already got New Zealand's slowest commute. It's not particularly efficient, it's not productive, and we could virtually grind to a halt if we don't transform our transport system. So public and transport, that's our bus network, getting on with the mass rapid transit, whether that's light rail or bus rapid transit. We need to do that for our economy, and we need to get ahead of it and not kick it down the road anymore.
Okay, great, thank you.
Seriously, right, with the mass rapid transit, the government came to us and said, we love Christchurch because it's flat. And we are having, it's made the infrastructure list, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
That it's now on the list, so one day when they get some money, it will be funded, hopefully, because they can spend $1 here because we're flat, we'll get a lot more distance and things going. But also swapping around mainland trains, mainland rail, they're putting their hand up and going to have a go. Great, because if it might suit some people more than others.
Yep.
If we take 10% of the
Yep.
people off the road, it's good all round.
Yeah. So you both talked about, some of the core things that people would expect from the council, which is great. If I get you to put on your business lens and rethink that question around, I guess, capital investment priorities, and in particular, and you probably both knew this was coming, I want you to think about and talk about how you view the role of council-owned assets like the port, like the airport, and utilities in enabling and funding future growth. Because as our business community grows, we need to make sure that we have the right infrastructure across our business community as well as supporting our residents of Christchurch. So I'd just like you to maybe have a go at answering that question. And as you do, tell us about what criteria you would use to decide the most important priorities when you're looking at it through the lens of a business. If a business is growing their exports, they want to move their goods around, what does that mean?
So, are you talking more about ownership and where capital goes?
I guess, yeah. You can answer it however you wish to answer it.
Yeah.
I think the first bit is how do you view the role of council-owned assets?
Yeah.
But in regards to enabling future growth.
Okay, yeah. So clearly the port and the airport are crucial, and Orion with decarbonisation, and making sure that they are fit for purpose for the future is crucial. And we've seen not only the role of the port and it being resilient and future events, those kind of things, not just for Christchurch but for the region, is crucial. But the other ones are really important too. So if you look at Eco Central, for example, small business wouldn't make a huge dent in council finances, for example, if it was sold. But if we sold it, instead of the profits coming back here to be reinvested in our community, then they would go elsewhere. And then we would pay increased prices for processing our recycling because someone else would own the monopoly that we have to use. And so the criteria that we need to look at when we're looking at those assets need to be broader than just the company itself or just the group. So any cost-benefit analysis has to include the other externalities. And as we've seen recently with the recent Talbot Mills survey, over 80% of Christchurch residents want these assets used in the best interests of the city, and that's beyond the cash and the profits, because they do play such a crucial role. Enables the same. Currently they provide some competition, not enough because they're not allowed to retail, but with a law change, which we can be involved in advocating for, they could be a retailer as well of internet services, and therefore provide competition which keeps prices lower for residents. And that kind of thing needs to be taken into account in any analysis that comes to council.
You've been pretty out there on this, so I'm interested in your views.
What we've got is, I take it this way, a business comes down to Christchurch, I'm going to invest here, and then how the hell am I going to get my stuff out of here if they're exporting and things like that? So the port is crucial, and I must congratulate them, because last week they made a record profit. Good work. But one of the questions we get asked is, they're thinking of spending $800 million on an expansion. Now that will go, what used to happen in the past, Orion might have done their thing and the port might have done their thing. Now under Christchurch City Holdings, and Sarah's been on there and did a good job, so it's all good. I'm not, poking borax at anyone. But it used to be a bit siloed. Now it will be, you want to spend $800 million, bring us a business case, and if it works, it's good. One of the other things that Sarah did touch on a little bit is the Alpine Fault. Now, when that goes off, I hope I'm not here, but it is overdue. But when it does, we need control of our airport, Orion, and our port, because it's going to be the only way in and out. And I think you'll agree our airport is probably the best in the country. I've been lucky enough to be overseas a couple of times doing sister city stuff, and I sat in the Korean Air head office and I said, please come to Christchurch because we won't rip you off. Auckland will rip you off as far as landing charges go. They thought that was marvellous. But the other thing is, the more wide-body jets we get down here, every one of our wide-body jet, well not ours, every wide-body jet that comes to Christchurch always goes out full of export. Not many people know, but when it's cherry season down in Central, they get trucked to Auckland because they can't get them out of here. Yep. So look at carbon, you've got a little bit in the middle called a bit of Cook Strait. Yep. So if we can encourage that, because we have got room, and make it good for people who want to spend the money in the city to be able to get their goods out, because you make all the stuff in the world, you can't export it, you're in strife.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, just to be clear, I guess the question was also around not necessarily selling assets, because I know that is, that's a very contentious issue and probably one that you both probably want to avoid being asked about. But this is about thinking about whether or not there are opportunities to enhance the assets that the council does have ownership of without losing control. And I think, is there an appetite from both of you to at least have those discussions around what could the future of those assets look like under a different arrangement, as opposed to should we keep them or sell them? It's not as cut and dry as that. So I'm keen to. Yeah,
there are nuances in those conversations.
Yeah.
We do need to invest in them, especially in the port in Orion. So we have an enormous amount of decarbonisation to do as a city and as a region, and Orion play an enormous role in that. So they need to be able to invest. And there's some things that can happen in that space, but it might be that we take a lower dividend if it's best for city, for example. Same with the port. They need to invest. If we took a lower dividend, then we can retain ownership and they get to invest at the same time. They're not going to need all of the money at once. It's not like they need $800 million tomorrow. It's a staged process over time. What was important after the earthquakes is because we had them, we were able to have the capital release, and yes, that's still sitting there as debt, but we couldn't have done that if we didn't have the assets to start with. Yeah.
Phil?
After COVID, the airport went from hero to zero as far as return went, and probably so did the port. And I think there's still a number of businesses that are still struggling from that, not necessarily them, but you're seeing it in the paper, there's the long reaches of that are still causing a lot of grief. But we've got to be careful, because we've got, before the earthquake we had no borrowed money, it must have been like coming on to, now we've got $2 billion, and Christchurch City Holdings have got a fair bit on their plate as well. And it's good, they're going to make more profit this year. We could knock on their door and say, give us all that money. And we could use it for all sorts of things, but they wouldn't be able to pay down the debt as fast. That's something that we've really got to start attacking, not at the expense of having a fire sale and get rid of everything, but just see how anywhere we can save some money, even if it's talking to the man in the lift about his department, can you save, $500,000 or whatever. Yeah. But go around the whole place and just try and attack some of it. We had $20 million underspent on our capital last year, and we decided that we'd take it off debt. That made a 0.22 difference in our rates. So you imagine multiplying that by 10. Every little bit helps. It might not seem 0.2, waste of time, not worth worrying about. Start adding them all up, and it starts making a difference. And when we've got the debt down, because the other thing we've got a myriad of people coming to us now who, and I'm not blaming the Rata have changed where they go with some of their funding. So there's a lot of people coming to us more for less money, and I feel sorry for our staff, and they're just going like this all the time. So once we get our debt paid down, we'll have more money to pay for these things, and it just makes it.
Yeah. And look, I fully appreciate that it's a really hard balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
From a business perspective, and certainly from our members' perspective, what we need to ensure is that we do invest ahead of the demand, so we don't get into a situation where, all of a sudden we're growing our exports, but we can't get them out of the port because we haven't invested sufficiently, or the big ships aren't coming in, and so
the ships are getting bigger.
That's what it's right.
Absolutely.
That's what we're concerned
Yeah.
about. That yes, it's important to pay down debt, but it's also important that we continue to invest ahead of demand.
Yeah.
So just turning now, obviously infrastructure is all about local. Christchurch's ambitions are national and global. So let's turn to how you would position Christchurch on that broader stage. And Sarah, we'll start with you. What unique strengths should Christchurch be known for in New Zealand and internationally, and how would you champion that? So what really makes Christchurch stand out from your perspective?
We are rapidly becoming the city of choice when it comes to people and businesses coming here nationally, but also internationally. And we've seen the amazing work that Christchurch NZ has done, especially in that high-tech innovation health sector, and also in that sort of space sector with Tāpaki and others as well. So there's that high-tech innovation space, which I think is crucial. And you see the digital out at the university, wide range of those things. And they're not stories that we tell particularly well. And I guess the good news story doesn't sell papers, right? And so people don't recognise that, I think, enough about us. But we are the city that's a perfect size to attract talent as well. And I think that being an attractive city for people to live also brings businesses here, because it's not just the business attraction, it's how the businesses keep good people. And so making sure that we provide the really good public realm, transport, all of those kind of things will help enable businesses to thrive here.
Great, thank you. 30,000 people have moved here since 2018, so we're doing something right.
Absolutely.
And from the North Island, I think. So
it's phenomenal.
Phil, what about you? What do you
We've
think
got,
are those unique strengths?
at the moment, after trying to follow everything that Sarah said, which was what I was going to say. No, that's right. We've got 26,000 students at the uni, just UC at the moment. I'm told by the Vice-Chancellor that it's going to be 30,000 by the end of the decade. No matter what it is, if they all go away and do their OE, if 10% of them come back for high-paying jobs and things like that, that's what we've got to encourage. And with what we're doing with aerospace and all of those things, another one is Gary Moore, a number of years ago, had the luxury of no borrowed money and put $30 million towards the engine centre out of the airport. That's run its course. They're now into new engines, and Pratt & Whitney and Air New Zealand together have thrown 300 million at the next stage. It is phenomenal. And that's going to, in the end, both of them mixed together, both the buildings mixed together, 550 high-paying jobs. That's what we're after. That's what comes in. A lot of stuff with food and fibre. Christchurch NZ are doing a lot on the economic side of things. And by Aura, I think, has come in. That's $17 million they put in. Turner's Auctions, which is in New Zealand, but what they have done, they've said, I went and opened the other day at Luxury, 3 buildings they've opened in town, $34 million they've spent in the city, because they said, we're selling more cars here than the rest of the country by a long shot. So they're investing stuff in there. And there's another one, and it's just above the Porsche showroom, and I always get this bit wrong. It's where people take pills, what's it called? It's live, it's like students go there and get paid for 2 or 3 days to sit there and eat pills. This is not as simple as it sounds. And it's a testing regime, right? It's live trials, right? They've got people from overseas, companies from overseas queuing up. The cheapest one they do is $1 million. The dearest one they do is $5 million. And they've got people queuing up from outside to get them to do the test on their drugs. And it's working well. So and that's all down in the health precinct.
I think one of the things to note though as well is that, like the infants thing you were speaking at end of last year, we've got the opportunity. We're not too big, not too small, all of those kind of things, to become New Zealand's and Australia's first really sustainable city. You know, we've had this amazing investment post-quake in becoming much more resilient. We've still got a lot of work to do when it comes to that water and fire kind of space and the adaptation. But, you know, we're already starting to make the transition to being a low-carbon economy, and that's good for business. You know, if we don't do that, we will be left behind. We will lose trade if we are not low-carbon in a very short period of time, and we need to be really proactive in that space.
Yeah. So, in regards to, I guess, what do you see your role in working with central government and other regions to really reinforce that, you know, Christchurch now is a new city. I think one of the things that we are not great at is telling the story in a different way, you know, and, you know, I've been to Christchurch, I've been to Wellington and use the terminology that if you haven't been to Christchurch in the last 3 years, you haven't been to Christchurch.
Absolutely.
And so how do you see your role, and Sarah, we'll start with you, how do you see your role if you were successful as the next Mayor of Christchurch, and really changing the narrative and the story so that people in Wellington, people outside of Christchurch, see Christchurch as a new city, not Christchurch as the garden city or Christchurch that's, you know, some of the existing traditional manufacturing, engineering, they're agricultural, really important sectors for us. But we also have new and emerging sectors like aerospace, like, you know, high-tech companies. So how do you see your role in actually changing that narrative and really making sure that we are part of national decisions in the future?
Absolutely. And it is about showing them that, so telling the story and showing them what more we can do. So we are the opportunity that they have to get ahead of the problems that Wellington and Auckland have been facing. And we need to sell that story, and we need to do that with partners. So we need to be working with Selwyn and Waimakariri. We need to be working with the different turunanga locally in Ngāi Tahu, and Business Canterbury and the CCBA and others, all together to tell that story and take it to Wellington, and outline the opportunity that the government have to get wins that look like their wins, because that's why they'll do it.
It's already happening. The people are coming down anyway. One of the things we've got down here that are making people come down here is we've got this that's better than Wellington. We've got 300 hectares of solar panels going up out the airport. Wellington would love to have 300 hectares of some land to put some, they just haven't got it, right? So we've got that there. That power is going to go onto the grid, and a lot of it's going to go to the airport. But people are coming down to be able to do this innovative stuff. Now, one of the things that we have got is between the airport, Christchurch City Holdings, and Fabrum and Airbus, is about investing in liquid hydrogen powered planes for doing freight for a start. So you can't do it with customer passengers, but that's all here in Christchurch. You've got Care Aerospace, you've got Dawn Aerospace.
So how do we get that message out there, though?
Well,
do you think it already is?
I'm pretty sure it's out there already, because you talk to people who have been up to Auckland or have come down. I've just moved down from Auckland. I should have done it years ago. And people can come down here and buy a house for probably 2/3 of what they can, but we mustn't lose that, because we could end up being too expensive.
That's right. Okay, let's now move to economic development, which will determine really how our regions is seen and competes in the future. So how would you describe the importance of economic development as a council role, and what does it look like in terms of outcomes and key measures?
The main outcome is to make every business that is here able to, one, build it without grief, but able to connect to port, connect to airport. Because that's, as I said, that if you can make it and you can't sell it, that's no use. We're very lucky that things are very close. After the earthquake, Jerry Brownlee said, we're going to have a plan, and we're going to put sport there, with health there, precinct there, arts precinct there. And I wasn't in council then. I thought, this isn't going to work. It's working, I tell you. I go to do something at Te Pai, and I say, yada, yada, yada. And they say, we can't believe this place. It is so walkable, and stadium, and getting back to that as far as the economy goes, I don't think people realise what's coming as far as the stadium goes. And some people who may not have been a fan, I think will see, it certainly gives you a rise when you walk down the road. Yep. But the unsung hero out of all of this is the Metro Sports facility. It is a city, it's 200 staff. It's high performance sport, it's got Olympic swimming pools, diving pools, all that sort of thing. The amount of economy, money that's going to come into the city with the events that are coming is I'm really looking forward to seeing how the city will go, and that's what's going to bring more people here.
Great. Sarah?
I think the council plays a key role in economic development, and that's got to be beyond just straightforward economic growth. I mean, because if you only take growth as a measure, then our city did amazingly after the earthquakes, right? Because we had this really high GDP because there was a lot of turnover. But actually our community suffered. So economic development needs to be about bringing all communities with us and making sure that we do it in a way that lifts everyone, because that's what we're aiming for. I mean, the economic system was designed to help people rather than just help a small number, if you like. So one of the things that concerns me at the moment is about the change to the Local Government Act, where the 4 wellbeings, including economic wellbeing, are going to be taken out. And so what that puts at risk is council's investment into economic development, especially with potential rates capping. And so the question then becomes, how do we continue to do economic development work, predominantly through Christchurch NZ, when the government have told us that that's not our role anymore, and put a cap on how much we can spend. So we have to work really closely with Business Canterbury and others on how we continue to do that. And we need to do it in a really strategic and a smart way. And we need to be advocating to government ahead of those changes to let them know what the impacts are. We've seen what's happened in Wellington, and we don't want to go there.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Look, finally, let's focus on specific commitments that you will make for the business community. After all, we are Business Canterbury, and we represent the business community, so it would be only natural that my final questions would be around this. So, Phil, I'll start with you again. If elected Mayor, what 3 specific commitments will you make to the business community tonight?
Right. Go work on expenses through the council, because that's how, if we can get our expenses down by asking the people down there, how can you help? That's got to help rates. By enabling us to not throw barriers in front of things that are getting built, or try and be as user-friendly as possible. Like, it doesn't have to be set in concrete. Have a bit of discretion on how we can get round a problem, and don't say if someone comes in and you say, no, can't go any further until you do this. Instead of saying that, if you did this, you could get round this problem, and sort of encourage, because it's those things that are going to make a lot of difference. So just make it as easy as we possibly can, and I'll go out of the way to make that happen.
Great, thank you. Sarah?
Earlier engagement is the first one. So really early engagement when we're looking at program. If there's a project that's out 3 years, then we need to be starting to engage with business early as that stuff's being developed, so we can take everything into account and that businesses are aware of what we're doing and why. I'd like for us to work on a shared vision for the next 15 years and actually work together really closely on that, so that everyone has that vision, they can see the direction that we're heading and why some of those projects are in place and the difference that will make. I think that will be really important. And the last one is that we can work together to advocate to central government for the changes that we need, and make sure that we can continue to invest in economic development for the benefit of the business and our communities.
Great. So I can hold you both accountable to those things?
Feel free.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Look, I think we're coming to the end of our time, so what I'd love to do is just give you the opportunity to both make some closing comments. Mm-hmm. So do you want to toss a coin as to who goes first, or?
If you like.
We'll go with Sarah then.
Carry on. I was just about to say, I've made Sarah go first a lot of times.
You have. Every time you've had a choice, you've made me.
Right. Something I prepared earlier, because only about 30 seconds you want to do, and I just scribbled these down. I'm a businessman, and I have been a businessman all life. As I say, one job I've only ever had. But it's not all about business. You've got to look at the community and stuff like, and well-being is very important. You've got to have happy people in the city. You've got a lot going on. I've got a proven track record of working with businesses and talking to them. Business community is a vital pillar to what Christchurch has done, and it's important, but we must continue to listen to what, not saying businesses is a be-all and end-all, but listen to what the businesses have to say, because they will make it easier for us in the long run. And we mustn't, just because if we all know, if a business is doing well, as I said earlier, if business is doing well, community is doing well, because they'll hire people, more people come into the city, which they are anyway. We don't want to have a high unemployment rate, just because we don't want to employ people. So business will help the other one, everyone will be happy. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good. I'm up for the challenge.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Sarah.
Thanks so much. So at the time of the earthquakes, I was a small business owner, and I sold that within a couple of months of the earthquake, so I could concentrate on my family and I'm volunteering in my local community. And from that, I got elected to community board and then onto council. And during that time, I've deliberately upskilled. So I've done a whole pile of governance courses, I've done the IOD stuff. I've spent 5 years on the board of CCHL, learning a lot about the ins and outs of those council-owned assets. And I've got a lot of experience behind me now in that governance space. I'm really focused on the next 15 years for our city and making sure that we engage really well with business and that we continue to invest as a council into our infrastructure, into our public realm, to make sure that Christchurch is a really great place to invest and for talent to be.
Great. Look, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us tonight. I think you... I was expecting a little bit of tension between the two of you, but you...
We've done any of that.
How many times have we done this now?
I probably needed to ask you something slightly more controversial to see that, but I really appreciate that you have made the time.
Yeah, you've got to be respectful.
I wish you all the very best over the next month.
Thanks so much.
As you know, Business Canterbury is a very strong, provider of business insights and engagement for you. So we look forward to continuing to have the great relationship that we do have with the Christchurch City Council and whoever may be the next mayor and the next set of councillors. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much, Leeann.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Good on you.